vertigo, seasickness, dizziness, February 10th, 2021. An update to my shoulder injuries. Because of my shoulder injuries, I cannot lay on either my right side or my left side. There's pain in both shoulders. So either I have to sit up, stand up, or sleep on my back. I guess what's happening is the crystals in my ear canals are settling to the bottom when I lay on my back and sleep on my back. So what happens with normal people is they may sleep on their back, but then they will toss and turn at night from the left side to the right side, and they'll keep those crystals in their ears circulating. There's a liquid in your ear that keeps your balance. Now, because I went to physical therapy last Wednesday and the shoulder was in so much pain, that's all I've been doing for a week is laying on my back and icing and heating up my shoulders with a heating pad. Now, Monday I called to cancel physical therapy because it only made the pain worse. And by Monday night, I developed symptoms of vertigo from laying on my back all the time. Now, I didn't know what it was. I never had it before. And here's the thing. People don't like to talk about their medical conditions. So everybody's had this, but nobody wants to tell you because there's some kind of conspiracy. It's like everybody loses money in Vegas, but nobody wants to tell you they lost money in Vegas. They want you to learn by yourself by you going to Vegas. So same with this vertigo thing. Everybody's had it, and they've ended up going to the hospital, emergency room, spending thousands of dollars, but they don't want to tell anybody about it. It's because the system doesn't want you to talk about it. They don't want people talking about how much money they lost in Vegas, and they don't want people talking about their vertigo and how they could have cured it with exercise. They want everybody to go to the emergency room, spend tens of thousands of dollars, get all these tests, CT scans, blood tests, possibly operations, because none of it's going to work. They would have left me in that hospital and they would have operated on my arm if I didn't decide I better get the hell out of here. These people don't know what the fuck they're doing. Now, I thought it might have been food poisoning from the ice cream that I ate, or it might have been diabetes from eating all that sugar. As soon as I would try to put on my shoes, I would just fall over. Not really pass out. I was still conscious, but I just couldn't stand up. The room started spinning. I couldn't even bend over to get the mail out of the mailbox without seasickness, vertigo, and that I'd have to stand up real quick to keep from falling over or passing out. Just moving my head back and forth would start the room to spin and would make me collapse. So I called 911 and they gave me a blood test to see if I was diabetic, because that's what I thought it was at first. And so it was 103, and they said it wasn't diabetes. Now, my sister said it was a little bit high, but, I could barely stand up and walk, so I went to the hospital. Now, even the ambulance ride made the whole room spin. Just bouncing around in the ambulance as they were going over these speed bumps and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, the room I'm in a tornado. So what a nightmare the hospital was. It was some kind of horror show. It made One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest look like a nice, happy place to be. At least a dozen police officers there to protect the medical staff from the victims screwed over by them. Because I imagine everybody who ever goes to the hospital wants to return with a machine gun. I have no doubt that all these cops know exactly what's going on. Police enslaving, it's a police state, enslaving people with jobs and torturing them when they can't get any more work out of them. Using people as guinea pigs, just like in the song Helter Skelter. Charles Manson was right. There's no doubt about that. The only time the medical staff was nice to me was when I was leaving the hospital. Well, somebody should drop a nuclear bomb on that hospital just to put everybody out of their misery. They would be a lot better off. You would be doing them a favor. This mentally incompetent doctors all the way around. Now, if I knew what it was, I might have been cured from watching some YouTube videos, just looking it up. Or at least from this hospital visit, I'm absolutely certain they don't even treat you in the hospital. They put you in a room and watch you to see if you die or if you figure out on your own how to cure yourself. Then they will simply run thousands of tests on you to make money off of you that have nothing to do with what's wrong with you. Now, if you figure out a way to cure yourself, they're watching you, then they'll use that as a treatment so they can charge other people thousands of dollars for the cure. So they ran hundreds of blood tests, and they did 2 CAT scans on me. And they did a CAT scan of my ear, and then they did another one of my neck. And they injected all these dyes and chemicals in me. Then they told me that the CAT scans were negative and told me I could be released from the hospital. Well, they didn't even cure me, but they ran all the tests, so now they made all the money they could. Medicare wasn't going to pay for any more tests, so you can be released now. Oh, you're not cured, but we can't get any more money out of Medicare, so we got to let you go. So they called in a ear, nose, and throat specialist that failed to diagnose my obvious vertigo. At least it was obvious to the ambulance driver and everybody on YouTube. I mean, everybody on YouTube would, even my own family, I should have called them first because they all had vertigo. And this is the first time I've ever experienced it or even heard of it. Because all these people had vertigo, but none of them told me, oh, that's something you got to find out for yourself after you pay all your money to doctors and have them torture you. Now, although I've passed out before, but I basically partially cured myself while I was at the hospital. The doctors didn't do anything to cure me. They just leave you in a room until you cure yourself, and you pay them all the money in medical bills while they're experimenting on you, and then they're causing you further problems that you never had before. So then they can make money off of those. Russia, China, please prove to the world that you're not evil as the United States says, and simply nuke the United States off the planet to show God what a great country you are. The doctors were giving me no answers, and the nurses were no help either. The pain in my shoulder was horrible from the physical therapy, but the pain from the IV needle in my arm basically gave me IV in my arm, and son of a bitch, there's a big old scar on my arm now where they had left it in there for almost 24 hours. The pain from the IV was even worse than the shoulder pain. So I couldn't even tell that I had shoulder pain while this giant needle was jammed into my arm. So it was really like what I said in my last video, like a acupuncture needle. You feel the pain from the needle, and you don't think about the pain from your shoulder injury anymore. The pain from the shoulder injury is about a 3.5 to a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'll put the pain from the IV at about a 4.5 to a 5. But then it gets worse as it's in there for more than 12 hours. Now, if they didn't take that needle out when they did, I probably would have pulled it out myself. They let you lay in bed until you cure yourself, because I think they already know what the cure is, but they don't want to give it to you because they're like, hey, we can run more tests on this fool. They don't give you any of the answers. They didn't tell me nothing. So I'm trying to help them diagnose what's wrong with me by trying to recreate the symptoms. So I bend my head forward and the room starts spinning. So I do that several times and then notify the nurse that this is one of the symptoms. When I do this, the symptoms are worse. But then the doctor comes in and he says, bend your head forward. And I bend it forward. Guess what? I no longer have the symptoms when I bend my head forward. So I start to bend my head to my side, or I bend my head all the way to the floor, and I recreate the symptoms again. But then when I tried it a couple more times, the symptoms went away. So then they sent in a ear, nose, and throat guy to give me some tests to see if I have vertigo. So this ear, nose, and throat specialist comes in, and she basically gives me the same test that I just did to myself to try to recreate the symptoms. And then she goes, well, bend your head forward and then lean back. And she goes, nope, you don't have vertigo. Well, I just done that a dozen times to try to see what was wrong. So basically, I just cured myself of the vertigo by bending my head backward and forward, trying to reproduce the symptoms. So now they don't think I have vertigo because the mental incompetence of this ear, nose, and throat specialist. But I know I still have these vertigo symptoms because now I realize if I turn my head to the side, or sometimes while laying in bed in a certain position, the room will start spinning again. Well, I'll move my head to a different position than what the ear, nose, and throat specialist moved my head. So she might have did this and I don't have the symptoms, but now if I move my head like that, then now I got the symptoms. So I keep trying to find out which way to move my head to get the symptoms again. to get them to repeat, the symptoms to repeat, so that I can say that to the doctor. So I can say, well, look, it happens when I do this, right? And, or when I do that, move my head that way. And I repeat it 4 or 5 times to make sure the symptoms return all 4 times. So then, when I try to explain this to the CT scan lady, I say, look, lady, I don't think I need that CT scan. I think this is what it is. I turn my head to the side, and all of a sudden the room starts spinning. And so I show her this, and I turn my head to the side, and I'm like, oh, crap, the room ain't spinning. And she's like, well, what's supposed to happen? Well, I'm supposed to get dizzy and fall down. That's what's supposed to happen. But now it ain't doing that. It did it 4 times, but now it ain't doing that. So I was trying to hopefully get a diagnosis before I have to get injected with a bunch of dyes and chemicals and get this other CT scan and try to give a clue to the doctor what's wrong with me. So I showed that CT scan lady what happens when I bend my head, and nothing happened. So I must have cured it from doing it those 4 times. So it's kind of making me out to be a liar, because I'm telling them, look, I get dizzy when I do this, and then when I do it, it's not doing it. So I'm like, what the hell? The Lord is making me out to be a liar or something. Anyways, after the CT scans, they tried to say there was nothing wrong with me, and they released me from the hospital. And so I asked them to remove the IV from my arm, but they said they were not going to do that until just before I'm released, and they wanted me to eat first and stuff like that. So they let me lay there for a few more hours with this IV jammed in my arm before they removed it. But I could still feel lightheaded walking out the door of the hospital. So I know I'm not cured. And so when I got home, my shoulders were killing me still. They started killing me. As soon as the pain from the IV went away, my shoulders started bothering me. Now my right shoulder's bothering me also. And so I had the IV jammed in my arm, so I really didn't know how bad my shoulder pain actually was. So I didn't even mention the shoulder pain at the hospital. Well, I told them that was the reason why I went to physical therapy, but they asked me if I was in pain, and I said, no, it's not hurting me now. The IV is, though. So I don't know why my shoulders didn't bother me while I was in the hospital. I don't believe they injected me with any pain medication, but it must have been because they had that IV jammed in my arm, and that hurt like hell. But who knows what they injected me with? Because that seems to be the only way to get it. So I got home from the hospital about 5:30 p.m. last night, and all I've been doing today is watching YouTube videos on how to cure the vertigo that the hospital couldn't cure for the thousands of dollars Medicare spent on me. What a waste it was going to the hospital. Now, I'm probably going to have several more things wrong with me now than I had before I went to the hospital, because my arm is killing me from that injection, and who knows what side effects that crap is going to have on me. Now, the last video I made was very long, 43 minutes, but I left out a lot of stuff, and I was going to make a video about that when I left, but now I got this vertigo thing, and I got a whole lot of other issues. I went to the hospital. So it seems that vertigo is similar to seasickness. And I had early signs of this for years, but the doctors never caught it. I do believe that the itchy ears, ringing in the ears, tetanus, is an early symptom of the vertigo. So if you get dizzy on a boat, you may have the early signs of vertigo, and it may get worse if you don't do anything about it. So I went to the doctors, and don't take any pills for it, because there's exercises you can do for it. Don't get any of the operations until you try the exercises first. You know, I went to the doctors many times with what I thought was an ear infection or itchy ears. My ears were itching. And plus ringing in the ears. My ears are ringing off the hook. If your ears are itchy and you're pulling on your ears, you may be trying to free the crystals in your ear canal that may have become stuck. Okay? This is what may be causing the itchy ears. Now, several doctors have looked in my ears and they claim that I have no ear infection. But I'm telling them that I got itchy ears. I'm yanking on my ears. I'm pounding on my ears trying to stop the damn itching. Try to stop the ringing. Maybe it's causing the ringing. But, I told the doctor about the itchy ears, ringing in the ears, the severe pain in the ear. And, if there's no red in there, then there's no infection. So they look, there's no red. Well, it's not an infection. There's no red. Nothing wrong with you. Go home. And you're not cured. At night, I would have this sharp pain in my ear, like somebody had punched me in the ear. At first, I thought it was like a nerve from my neck because I got neck problems. But now I'm thinking it might have been from this dried up clump of wax that was in my ear. No ear infection. They looked in my ear and they said no ear infection, but they didn't remove that clump of wax. So the ear, nose, and throat person took out that clump of wax. There's a real dry, hard clump of wax that I believe was infested with toxic mold from my mold house, but you can't get them to believe that. And so when they got that clump of wax out, last night I didn't have that sharp pain in my ear. So that might have been it. Now, the YouTube video showing the cure for vertigo happened to be the same kind of things that I was doing to myself at the hospital, just out of common sense to try to figure out what the hell was wrong with me, to try to diagnose myself of what was causing the room to spin. So what I'm doing is kind of like these exercises on YouTube. I'm recreating the symptoms for vertigo. I'm like turning my head to the side, room ain't spinning, turn my head to this side, room ain't spinning, turn my head back, not spinning, head forward, not spinning. But then there's certain positions I could turn my head and the room starts spinning again. Now, of course, the symptoms are even worse because this lady had figured it out with her half somersault maneuver. So if I do this half somersault maneuver, well, it's just vertigo's out of control. They didn't try any of these exercises at the hospital to try to cure my vertigo. They were just looking for something they could operate on and make sure I went through every test they could profit from. And so when there's no more tests that Medicare is going to pay for, they send you home and say you're cured when they didn't do a damn thing for you. Excuse me. As I was laying in bed, oh man. So as I was laying there in bed, in that hospital bed, they could have tried a lot of different things before they gave me a CT scan and dye injections. They could have gave me an anti-anxiety pill to see if that would have helped. They could have tried an antibiotic to see if that would have helped because I could have had a virus or something. But they acted like, an anxiety pill or antibiotic would have done more damage than the IV and being injected with who knows what. And they didn't even try an exercise. So it's almost like they knew what the cure was, but they didn't want to do that because they want to make money off of you. And they want to torture you. I'm kind of pissed off now. I feel like canceling my medical insurance. What a waste of money. There is nothing they can do about my shoulder injuries. They're just trying to kill me and everybody else. Now, I wonder the hospitals have to have a dozen cops there. I have no doubt they are operating on some people who could have been cured by some simple exercise or an antibiotic or a anxiety pill or exercise like the half somersault maneuver. Now, I haven't tried this yet. I'm still too lightheaded to even walk around. Even though I've done these, when I walk around, I'm still lightheaded. But I do believe that repeating the maneuver that causes the symptoms, causes the room to spin, keep doing that over and over again, is the cure for it. You have to go into that head position that causes the room to spin to overcome it. Because that's basically how I fixed it. The doctors didn't do nothing for me. At the hospital, they didn't even tell me my symptoms would disappear if I simply closed my eyes. There seems to be two kinds of vertigo, though. The only other time I felt like this is when I drank too much alcohol and the room started to spin. But basically, that was the opposite of what I'm experiencing now. Because if you drink a lot and the room starts to spin, it's basically because you're closing your eyes. Because I remember drinking a lot of alcohol, getting really drunk, and I closed my eyes and the room started to spin. And then I had to open my eyes to stop the room from spinning, to see that it wasn't spinning. So you have to open your eyes to keep the room from spinning if it's an alcohol overdose. So that's kind of why I thought the vertigo was caused by alcohol poisoning or maybe food poisoning. But in this case, it was the opposite. The room would spin when my eyes were open, and then it would kind of stop spinning when I closed them. Well, now my arm is hurting where they put the IV in. So now I'm just sore all over the place. And this is for a whole nother video about the IV thing.